They are telling us right now about their dream to develop headless human bodies in labs to harvest organs, to get you accustomed to the idea that we will share a world, maybe not so far from today, with lab-grown rat brains transplanted onto the tops of these headless human bodies. That's the future. We're going to have a whole new fight over whether they have rights, do they pay taxes, what's the morality with all this, the ethics involved. I mean, this is what's happening. They are, as they always do, creating the next Frankenstein. But that is what we are seeing today. The company is called R3, and they are dreaming of creating headless human bodies, or as they like to call them, organ sacks. Depends who you talk to, that's the sanitized version. But essentially what it would be is these headless human bodies that they've been growing, that they can harvest organs within, or they can experiment with to, for one, they say to get rid of animal testing, which I don't like animal testing at all. I mean, remember all the things that Fauci did to all the beagles and what Elon has been doing over at what they call, literally, you can look this up, Monkey Disneyland. Elon has exploded lots of brains of monkeys trying to get the Neuralink inside and see if it works before they moved on to Noland with his Neuralink. That's for real. And there's lots of other animals that have been killed for the Neuralink. But we've been testing on animals for a while. I personally don't like it. I think we should test on pedophiles. I think, I don't believe in the death penalty. I don't think the state should have that right. But I do not really mind if we experiment on them. I think they've given up that right, and they can suffer and wither away in a jail cell while the mad scientists do what they have to do, I guess. Although I don't really want them doing a lot of it too. But these guys at R3, they're also funded by a man named Tim Draper. Tim Draper also funds Colossal Sciences, Biosciences. You remember that one? They are the ones, is it Colossal Biosciences? Let me make sure I get their name right. But they are the ones who are bringing back the woolly mammoth. They are bringing back the saber-toothed tiger. And they brought back the direwolf. But you'll remember that the direwolf they resurrected from the dead isn't technically a direwolf. It is, in all appearances, aesthetically a direwolf. It looks like what they believe direwolves look like. But it is basically like a regular wolf that just looks cool. But yeah, Colossal Biosciences, that is them. And they have a whole slew of plans to bring back stuff. So I just love that future that we're going to have where, the pterodactyls that Colossal Biosciences is developing, they will be able to deliver the organ that has been harvested in your headless human body, and the pterodactyls will just be like those are bio drones, but remote controlled. They'll probably have an implant in their brain, so someone at home, or actually you won't even have that job. By this point, you're not having a job, so it's not a someone, it's a something, and you'll probably have a remote controlled Colossal Biosciences pterodactyl being controlled by lab-grown rat brains. That's what they're training to do right now. They're training the lab-grown rat brains to play Doom because they're training the lab-grown rat brains to be assassins. And they'll do that remotely, remote assassinations via lab-grown rat brains. And then at some point, they're going to merge these together once these bio drones that are pterodactyls created by Colossal Biosciences, once they deliver the organs properly that they've harvested in these headless human bodies, they'll also be able to merge the I'm already forgetting the name of these things, the lab grown rat brains to those bodies, and then we're in real trouble. Then we are in real trouble. My brain obviously needs lab grown rat brains. It does better than what I have now. I can't even play Doom. But I want to read you about R3. But I also want to say that I've had people reach out being like, when you say they're cloning Biden or they're cloning someone, like, do you mean that, they'll ask me, do you mean Do you think they grew this clone over time, or that they have like age appropriate, ready to go, like microwave meals for clones? I think after reading into these headless human bodies, which I think they've had these for quite some time. This is nothing new. They just want to let you know now. This is all about prepping you for the reality that they're turning us into, that they're forcing us to inhabit, with the UFOs, with the headless human bodies, with the lab-grown rat brains, with the woolly mammoths coming back, with the pterodactyls coming back. Or pterodactyls maybe never were here. There were dragons. Wait till they bring back dragons, then I'm on board. I want a dragon. We should all have a dragon. That probably falls under 2A somehow. It's like a fire cannon, a flying fire cannon that we'll need to fight off all these creatures and monsters that colossal biosciences are creating. But I think that they have been developing bodies for some time, and they grow them, and they're just waiting, like a headless human body, perhaps. And that when they need a new Biden, they just print out some face and they attach it. That doesn't mean that they're not also creating clone babies, like the infinitely cloned mice that they want to do. But when they get to the 58th generation, they start to deteriorate and they don't live more than a day, which maybe was like some Bidens, because they must be on like 58 Bidens by now. That feels about right to me. But I think, like, I swear to you, I think Thomas Matthew Crooks and Tyler Robinson are lab grown. There's something that looks like they are the like end result of multiple clonings that never saw daylight. They just don't look right. People say, well, they're just loners, you know, they're pharmaceutical, pumped up with pharmaceuticals. And I think they're pumped up with pharmaceuticals because they're lab grown. They all kind of look the same. Look at them. They look like melting like teeth. And then they all mysteriously, all of their stuff disappears online. That's just me. 3D faces. I think they print out 3D faces and put them on Tyler Robinson, Joe Biden, Thomas Matthew Crooks, and they have bodies waiting for any age, ready to go. A lot like Westworld. I think they have that. They've had that for quite some time. Also, happy April Fool's Day. What an amazing April Fool's it is with all this news going on. Allegedly, Artemis is being launched into the green screen sky to fly around the moon at around the same time that Trump is supposed to give an address. I guess by the time you're watching this, Trump will have given that speech, and that will, like we were talking about yesterday with John, multiple heads of state giving speeches. Lots of weird things going on. This is supposed to be about Iran, but we'll see. Maybe it's about aliens. Maybe he's going to rip off the mask. Like in Bulwark? So let's get to this. I saw this in Wired. A billionaire-backed startup wants to grow organ sacs to replace animal testing. And like I always say, they always want to make you, they want to sell you on the positives. It's going to be good for of course I want to stop animal testing. I think it's bad. I think we should just say a billionaire-backed startup wants to grow organ sacs on the backs of pedophiles that are rotting in jail. But then you're like, what is the ethics of that? Do you want that? I say we can experiment on them. I don't want to be giving anything that's grown on them to anybody ever. It's like that story from a long time ago. Allegedly, this was true. It's a little different, but it makes me think of what we pass on with our organs, you know, kind of like an ancient DNA, but there's a more modern version of this with the lady whose husband, there's a husband took his life, I believe, and they took his heart and gave it to someone else. And that lady, the widow, I think fell in love with that guy. I hope I'm getting this right. Or I don't think I dreamt this, but she fell in love with this guy. And from what I remember, I think that guy also took his life. I'm not even going to look that up right now. We're just going to pretend that is history. And since I said it, it's true. Like everything that's on the internet, if it's on the internet, it's true. And FYI, everybody is correct. R3 Bio has a bold idea for replacing lab animals, genetically engineered whole organ systems that lack a brain. The long-term goal, says a co-founder, is to make human versions. And let me just see if I can get this. I want to get more from this article. Of course, it's behind a paywall, and my computer likes to just refresh pages. So while we do that, we're just going to talk about if you would like your head, if you like to live forever and put your head on top of a headless human body. I don't, but this is some real transhumanist stuff. You imagine how they're going to merge this idea with computers, with AI, with supercomputers, and what's going to happen, like with Ray Kurzweil, who wants to upload his consciousness into a computer and live and be immortal, basically. Then they'll have these organ sacs that they can just go in and out of, and this is transhumanism. We're always trying to sell it as this is going to be great for these people who need help, or we're going to stop testing on animals. This all sounds great, but you think about the future. So continuing on, a small group of scientists is angling to replace laboratory animals with living organ sacs grown from human cells. R3 Bio, a billionaire-backed biotech startup, is committed to designing complete organ systems to be used in the research and development of drugs and potentially as a source of tissues and organs for humans. Based in San Francisco, R3 aims to eliminate animal suffering by replacing the use of lab animals with these systems. They just want to normalize cloning. This is where it's going. Also, I don't know how healthy this is going to be. You know, I'm already not taking lots of injections that they want me to take because they say it's going to help me be healthier. But I don't trust that. I'm not going to take. This is like, 3D printing an organ, basically. Like, it's just like, what is in this? This can't be good. It's like the people who want you to eat the lab grown meat, or Bill Gates' fake butter. I'm good. The company takes its name from the animal testing philosophy of the 3 R's, which is replacement, reduction, and refinement. Developed in the 1950s to promote humane experimentation. The organ systems that R3 Bio proposes to engineer would contain all organs except the brain, making these sacs incapable of consciousness, sentience, or pain processing. Ostensibly leaving the brain off the table, or out of the sac, as it were, that's the writer's words, would remove the ethical issues that arise from extracting from living organisms. I think it's a little darker and weirder than that. I mean, sure. Like, would we even consider it a thing with a soul or alive if we grew the brain? But then if we grew the brain from cells, I mean, these are the debates that will be the future. They're right around the corner. And I imagine that's going to happen pretty soon. The more these things take hold, I give it like 5 years before this becomes like a national debate. And it'll be a cyclical debate because we've already been here. We've talked about Bill Clinton coming out during the cloning panic of the 90s and saying they're not going to be human cloning. And that was in the 90s. They've done more. Look how fast AI has progressed. I don't know if I believe that's the right word for that, but look how much it's changed over the years, over just 5-6 years. They definitely did not just stop cloning. We know about all the animal clones. We also know about a lot of experiments for almost 100 years now that they've been doing, trying to take heads, like head transplants. They've done it with animals, and they've tried with humans. I don't think they've succeeded publicly, but I do think maybe secretly they have. That could be another Biden that's out there, is the head transplant Biden. Despite the obvious absence, R3 CEO co-founder Alice Gilman prefers not to refer to said sacs as brainless. It's not missing anything because we design it only have the things we want, she told Wired. These brain-free organ sacs have caught the attention and secured the financing of investors who see them as integral to the future of longevity medicine, which is can be another way of saying transhumanism. But we all want to live a healthier and longer life. We want to take advantage of these beautiful days and be with our family as much as possible. But this so easily veers into the people who want to be immortal. This so easily veers into the people who want to play God. And of course it's in San Francisco. So while your bio drone pterodactyl is delivering your organ harvested from a human body without a head, it is flying over. It is being remote controlled over by lab grown rat brains over a city filled with poop from homeless people who can't get jobs because they've been replaced by all these robots and or lab grown rat brains. If we can create a non-sentient, headless bodyoid for a human being, that will be a great source of organs. While Gilman shared that R3 now has the technology to create mouse organ sacs, she said they have yet to implement the science. So from what I read, maybe it'll be in this article later on, they've been making brainless mice. And then they're probably going to be cloning brainless mice, and they're going to see how far we can go with cloning brainless mice. Maybe we can get to 60 generations. 60 clones, 60 copy and pasted mice clones. However, once vermin organ sacs are made, Vermin Organ Sacs, a new song by Cattle Decapitation, the company hopes to expand into monkey organ sacs and ultimately bodyoids made from human cells. There will be people who are going to come out and defend the bodyoids, and it would be funny if they're the same people who are pro-human sacrifice, pro-abortion, because I can see them saying that these bodyoids have more rights than the beautiful baby growing inside a woman. That is probably the future. Remember this. The benefit of using models that are more ethical and are exclusively organ systems would be that testing can be meaningfully more scalable, said Gilman. Gilman shared that ideally the monkey organ sacs could be used to test for drug toxicity, specifically in vaccine trials, a substitution that could spare a legion of monkeys from lives of captivity and laboratory experimentation. According to the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, part of the Department of Agriculture, 60,000 non-human primates were used in experiments at various research facilities in 2024. Some of those at Neuralink, at Monkey Disneyland. While more than half were not subjected to pain, 26,000 experienced minimal pain and 1,200 endured extreme pain or denied pain relief as part of the protocol of the experimentation. Gilman maintains that in addition to sparing our primate brethren pain, they're not our brethren. They're not. We want to protect the animals, but sounds like some evolution believers to me. Bodyoids would allow researchers to see how drugs affect the human body en masse and at once a clear advantage over current organs on chips or tissue models. Frankenstein, man. Once they install the lab-grown brains to the headless human bodies, Frankenstein. And you know how that goes. Loneliness, isolation, a monster, but the monster appears to feel, wants to be accepted, rejected, chased out, mad at its creator. The creator wants to build the monster a partner. Ethically can't bring himself to do it. Destroys the bride of Frankenstein. Frankenstein vows to take out his creator's family, his loved ones, so the creator can feel the pain that the monster feels. And then a chase ensues, and he wants to destroy his creator. But then I believe, it's been a while, the creator dies, and the monster cries, and walks into the wilderness forevermore. The human body is not a collection of parts, it's a system. We can't keep studying diseases in pieces and hoping the results will scale, said Gilman. Whether we're testing new drugs, mapping rare disorders, or training AI models, the biology we use needs to reflect the biology we live with. Man, just imagine these headless human bodies attached to AI, attached to supercomputers, attached to living lab-grown brains, multiple different brains, experiencing what they think may or may not be pain. They're gonna plug it like these little lab-grown brains into it, like it's little USBs, and see if it has any new sensations here, mapped up to frequencies, charts going, and I mean, when the really crazy scientists get their hands on these things, which they probably already have, I'm like hesitant to even say some things out loud. I'm like, I don't want it to come true, but like you see how this could also turn into another one of those dolphin stories. Where I remember NASA, acid, dolphin, love, dolphin, suicide. There are people out there documented that would love something like this. I mean, Elon would love to impregnate all these things. But there are other people who would not mind having these. Like there's people who are already falling in love with AIs. You know, we did a whole episode a few months back about like the man who married a robot, the woman who married AI, or she was dating AI as she was a widow. You know, the more and more that becomes normalized, which it will, as loneliness and isolation accelerates, which it will, people are going to look for ways to replace the things from the real world, like quote unquote love. I don't believe this would be love, but people would think it's love because they're so lonely that one day they'll be able to purchase something like this. You know, it's like when I used to talk to my grandma about, you know, she had a job, and I think it was in the early 70s, maybe mid 70s. She worked for like a pet food distribution place in Brooklyn. It was either Brooklyn or Manhattan. It was the first time she ever saw a computer, and the computer, she said, just took up it was a whole floor, right? Just walking past rooms and rooms of this giant computer. And then just how funny it was, she'd always laugh at like the phone and be like, I can't believe it's just condensed down to this thing that used to take up like a whole floor in a giant building in the city. We all have in our pockets now. And, you know, to her, seeing that giant computer just felt like yesterday. So just, you know, in such a short amount of time, she saw the computer condense into something we can have in our pockets. And which reminds me also of one of my favorite scenes. Speaking of Draper, I was thinking of Mad Men when I was researching Tim Draper, who is funding R3 Bio and Colossal Biosciences, a lot of other things as well. Don Draper, one of the greatest characters in television. When Ida Blankenship dies, she's the very old, spoiler alert, she's not a huge character, but spoiler alert anyway. When Ida Blankenship dies, at her desk, I believe, in the skyscraper, way up high, up into the sky in Manhattan, the main founder, I think, of the company, I'm spacing on his name, such a great character. He was the older gentleman, the guy who was like obsessed with like I think Japan, probably I think a World War II vet. His character was. And he comes out, and you know, if you've watched the show, that like him and Ida had probably been at that job for a long time. Yeah, you know, they're OGs at that job, and they've seen a lot. Anyway, she's dead at her desk. She's an old lady, and he says something to the effect of, she was born in a barn in, let's say, she was born in a barn in 1880, and she died on the top of a skyscraper. She was an astronaut. Such a good scene. If you haven't watched Mad Men, it's really great. It's really a great show. I'm really it's going to bother me that I can't remember this character's name. Bert Cooper. Okay, Bert Cooper. And the exact quote, I should get the exact quote because it's so good. She was born in 1898 in a barn. She died on the 37th floor of a skyscraper. She's an astronaut. Man, Ida Blankenship, rest in peace. Good quote for today, as we have fake astronauts going to fake space. All right, back to this. I was going somewhere with that, and then I need lab-grown rat brains to take over the show. At some point, you're going to tune in. It's just going to be a petri dish with little brains inside of it, with electrodes coming out, and it'll probably do a better job and probably pronounce things appropriately in the right way. And God bless that. That's great. I'm trying to think where I was going, but my mind is going everywhere right now as I want to get to the alien hybrid stuff too. 'Cause that also happened. It's a great year. There's so many insane things happening this year. We had Matt Gaetz talking about alien hybrid programs. We'll get to that. Whether we're testing new drugs, mapping rare disorders, or training AI models, the biology we use needs to reflect the biology we live with. Gilman believes that to move beyond animal testing and towards system-level modeling, such technology should be part of the national infrastructure. That means funding it like a public good, validating it like a regulatory standard, and building it with the urgency of a moonshot. Gilman emphasizes, interesting choice of words, Gilman emphasized that while monkey and human organ sacs have yet to be developed, they would, in theory, be created using stem cell and gene editing technology. Ideally, these organs could also be used as viable transplants for the millions awaiting a life-saving transplant. Well, that will be interesting, won't it? But yeah, at some point, people are just going to buy him and marry him. Tim Draper, who's one of these venture capital guys behind this, he is the founder of Draper Fisher Jerviston. And the founder of Draper University. Since 2019, he's a partner in Draper Goren Holm. His most prominent investments include Hotmail, Skype, Tesla, SpaceX, AngelList, SolarCity, Ring, Twitter, DocuSign, Coinbase, Robinhood, Ancestry.com, Twitch, Cruise Automation, Focus Media, and what is this here? In July 2014, he received wide coverage for his purchase at a U.S. Marshals Service auction of seized bitcoins from the Silk Road website. Whoa. Draper is a proponent of Bitcoin and decentralization. He was one of the first investors in Theranos. We got to just do a quick detour to Theranos really quick. I'm sure most of you know this, but Theranos Inc. was an American privately held corporation that was touted as a breakthrough health technology company. Founded in 2003 by then 19-year-old Elizabeth Holmes, Theranos raised more than $700 million from venture capitalists and private investors, resulting in a $9 billion valuation at its peak in 2013 and 2014. The company claimed that it had devised blood tests that could be performed rapidly and accurately while requiring very small amounts of blood, all using compact automated devices that the company had developed. These claims were proven to be false. I won't go too far down that rabbit hole, but she's in jail. And I think she's a fraud. A lot of people trying to rehab her. Look, everyone can be redeemed. Honestly. And we've had this conversation before where I draw my line. God can do everything and anything. My line is with people who hurt kids. And that's between God and whoever he wants to redeem. And God is forgiving and filled with grace, but that's where my line is. But Elizabeth Holmes can be redeemed, but she is a con artist. Let's move on here, shall we? Crazy, that guy's behind a lot of stuff. We also had this. So see if there's any other new information. This Silicon Valley startup backed by Tim Draper pitches. Oh yeah, I just like this headline. Pitches growing brainless human clones for organ harvesting and brain transplants. So it's not here yet, but it will be here soon. It's not here yet, but it will be here soon. And by that I mean it is here, but it will be publicly known soon. So segueing now from one non-human thing to another, Matt Gaetz was talking to Benny Johnson, and I trust Benny Johnson as much as I trust CNN. But Matt Gaetz, I think he's interesting. Anyone in politics, I think we should be looking at, a little like crooked, but I've interacted with Matt, who's very nice. He did the show with us and the Timcast crew in Miami a few years ago. The day before October 7th happened. And he was really cool. It was the day the big day with the Speaker of the House getting kicked out. Anyway, Benny Johnson, basically Anderson Cooper for the right, asked Matt Gaetz what is the most disturbing alien finding he learned in Congress. And he responded with this answer about alien breeding programs and non-human biologics. This is a quote from Gaetz. I had someone come and brief me who was in a military uniform, worked for the United States Army, that was briefing me on the locations of hybrid breeding programs where captured aliens were breeding with humans to create some hybrid race that could engage in intergalactic communication. An actual uniformed member of the United States Army briefed me on that. In crashes of craft that had been recovered by the CIA, it wasn't just the hard materials, it was also biologics, but they couldn't identify a human source of those biologics. Do you believe that? I believe that it is very possible that someone showed up and told Matt that. I don't believe that is fully true. It reminds me of how I felt for years. I would reference Annie Jacobson on Rogan. We did it on the show. You saw me change my mind on the show. I'd reference her talking about a source of hers telling her that at Area 51, he encountered our government taking like children with Down syndrome and mutilating them to look like extraterrestrials to scare the Soviets, to make them think that we were talking to aliens. When I rewatched that video on this show about a year ago, I was like, this is probably just propaganda, although it is very possible that they did that. I also think that information like this is sometimes seeded into the zeitgeist to tweak the narrative that we keep talking about on this show, right? They're engineering a narrative right now where they're trying to rewrite human history and the history and the future of humanity. And by not rewriting the future, but like trying to hijack what they want the future to be, which is this dystopian, transhumanist, globalist, extraterrestrial, intergalactic communicating, fake moon believing, transhumanist dystopia. I think I said transhumanist maybe 10 times there, but you know what I mean. And that's why so much of what we're seeing now is about conspiracy theories. You're being, all of your conspiracy theorist confirmation biases are being confirmed. All your biases are being confirmed. They're saying JFK was killed by the government. There was an article, I didn't get to it yesterday. Maybe we'll get to it later today, about a JFK secretary saying she believed the U.S. government killed him. We had this UFO disclosure talk. We got the JFK files, which wasn't much. The Epstein files, which were, I think, a massive, crazy insight into, peeking behind the curtain of these sickos that we're not talking about anymore because we got, all these wars going on now and meteors crossing the sky, all that fun stuff. But they are kind of massaging into the zeitgeist that we are going to be on this next phase of believing that we are in communication with extraterrestrials, and that we've been reverse engineering their stuff, and that we have tech that we could use right now. Maybe they've already been using it, and perhaps all of this kind of coalesces into the narrative. Right now, it seems like compartmentalized, depending on your media diet. If you're someone like me who is reading about all this stuff, my algorithm is clearly tweaked to see a lot of this. However, I read a lot of stuff, not just stuff for the show, and the idea or the phrase of conspiracy theory, that exact phrase has been popping up into just normal articles in mainstream outlets, because a lot of the subject matter is now easily veering into it, and they want it to be, I don't say verified because but what's happening, they're not verifying all of it. What they're doing is making it seem less crazy to believe in these things. Look, they don't want you believing or questioning Charlie Kirk's assassination, which you have every right to do, and you should. But it will be interesting. Like, how long will it be until there's some vindication with questioning Sandy Hook? You know, we don't talk about Uvalde enough. That was insane. Why did those police not do a thing? Remember that video? I wrote an op-ed about that a long time ago at Timcast. I was furious when I saw that video of the cops not doing anything. Man, furious. I hold this microphone because it's a hand grenade. And when I think about this stuff, I feel like throwing it across the room. And the Uvalde thing drives me insane. How quickly we forget about these things. Anyway, they're preparing us to believe this. And when I also talk about rewriting human history, we're getting stories now about we found a second Sphinx. And maybe, like that kind of falls in line with this whole believing in ancient breakaway civilizations or ancient technologically advanced civilizations. And now there's reports out there that there might be tunnels underneath that. I mean, so if we can rewrite history to help fit whatever they want the future to look like, and these are the media industrial complex types, but also the elite dark class of occultist, psychopath, reptiles at the top, whose names and faces we don't know. They're all working on how we can coalesce the narrative to make people feel crazy, and then feel so crazy they'll be grasping for anchors in reality. And then we've redefined these anchors so that it will not only divorce them from their God or from the beauty of themselves on this planet, it will make them seem even smaller by saying we're going to say it's now the Sphinx is way older than we thought. And we've been talking to like extraterrestrials from an asteroid for 100 years. And you are so much smaller. And there's just more. They've been traveling. These extraterrestrials told us they've seen everything. They've been everywhere. And there's hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people just like you or just like them, other races, other species. And there's galaxies. It's infinite. And it will be this new mainstream belief that they want you to worship. And if you don't, you'll be crazy. The new conspiracy theorists will be the people who, it's not so new because it's a lot of us right now, but will be the people who don't latch on to the new definition of life. And you can see how all that does coalesce, right? The idea of the abortion debate, the bodyoid debate, what is life, made, nihilism, time itself, physics, CERN, lab-grown rat brains, de-extinction. It all is a new shell coalescing around the narrative of the future, which we should reject. And a lot of it is fraudulent. I mean, we're watching a lot of AI stuff already shutting down. I think that bubble might be bursting. That's not to say the government won't absorb it and make it everything that we don't want it to be in terms of surveillance state. But I think people are rejecting it. It's such a great time for music, by the way. So much good music coming out. I might go live on Instagram later or tomorrow. I have a lot of things I want to say about music. So look for that there. Back to this thing with Gates. So I think it's very possible that someone shows up and they're just like playing a role. Maybe this person believes it. We have seen very similar stories like this popping up over the years, and even last year during a congressional hearing for a UAP hearing, when I think it was George Norrie who said he knew about Lockheed Martin being in possession of he said biologics, but that could be interpreted as technology or like actually someone. And then back to Annie Jacobson real quick, because I think I forgot to tie a bow on that one. When I watched her telling that story to Rogan about her source telling her at Area 51, he encountered these children being kind of like mutated into what looked like extraterrestrials. It seemed to me like it was bad information, perhaps like Operation Mockingbird situation, where they have government entities seeding, their own preferred narratives into journalists or outlets, you name it, networks. And then they help kind of massage that idea into the zeitgeist, prepare you, right? To get you predisposed to accepting something. And maybe it's more like even like where we're at now we are at like a fever pitch with the UFO disclosure. It is every day something new. I mean, with everything, but there's constantly new information about UFOs, meteors, orbs, airports shutting down, reverse engineering stuff, alien hybrid breeding programs. It's like, where is this taking you? Is there a reason? Do they want you to sign up? Are they going to say that you were actually the product of this? And we're going to look into the next story about a scientist who claims people all have alien DNA in them. But what if it's something else? What if I remember Tim would bring this up quite a bit on IRL, talking about the big ask. Now, he's talking about it in terms of politics, where a politician or a president, rather, is asking for something huge, but knowing that he'll have to negotiate down, and that negotiating down, actually down here, is what they really wanted. But it'll only be more appealing if they first make it sound absurd. And I was thinking about that this morning when it comes to the stories like this. Perhaps this could also be part of the big ask, where they're getting you so prepared for something insane, because a lot of people are going to just believe it, because look what the media does to people. It casts a spell. It's a form of hypnotism. Look at what it did to people during COVID, the George Floyd riots, you name it. We've been through cycles of hysteria for a long time in this country. But what if they are expecting you to then just believe the next level down, which is that they really want you? And I believe down here, it won't be so much extraterrestrial, and it should be demons. But what they want, I think, this is just a theory I had this morning, is they want you to kind of not be let down, be like, okay, wow, it wasn't really that crazy, but it's this, and this might be like AI, clones, humanoids, everyday life, being replaced, losing your jobs, major economy shift. It'll be, I think, in that realm. But that realm might also be suffering. It'll be great for the government, and they're going to use it for war. And the military-industrial complex has completely absorbed AI. Look at Andrew Will. Look at OpenAI. Look at Oracle, right? Like, these are major parts of the military now, thanks to Project Stargate, but before that, clearly, or Facebook. But for the people, it could be that they're preparing us to accept a lesser crazy. I don't know. Or they're just going to come out and Project Bluebeam you, Imagine if something happened tonight. So this is going to be airing after you guys already saw the speech, but I was like, it could be insane. Like, it felt like I made this post about how we're living in a movie. I'll read that real quick. Let me find this. And then tie it into today, which is April 1st, on the day of the Artemis mission to fly around the moon. But I was just like reviewing the last few weeks. Let's see. Remote controlled meteors, Lockheed Martin orbs, cocaine sharks, dolphin cartels, on-demand sunlight startups, sky terrorists filling the skies with poison, pedo reptiles designing personalized bioweapons delivered via robot mosquitoes, stripper politicians talking about interdimensional beings, antimatter transported in vans, tentacles growing in outer space. I know it's a potato, guys. I know. But still, it was growing tentacles. AI prime ministers drinking coffee in war zones. Humanoids on the front lines. Indiana Jones cosplayer briefing congressman on aliens. Vice presidents spawned by demons saying aliens are demons. Lab-grown rat brains trained to be assassins. Drone swarms over U.S. military bases. Moon launch on April Fool's Day. Discombobulators deployed by a reality TV star, real estate billionaire, kingpin president whose mad scientist uncle stole Nikola Tesla's death ray and time machine were trapped in a Marvel movie. And if we're trapped in a Marvel movie, I was thinking this morning what if they pull some crazy stunt today? Because in a movie, in like one of these Marvel movies, you can imagine in the intro, early on in the movie, president's giving a speech. There's a moon launch happening right now, and then something crazy happens. I don't know what, but it was just that is the more like cinematic, more like Hollywood blockbuster situation that would unfold, and anything seems possible now. I don't want to put that out there, but I already did. But it's just I couldn't help but think it. Thinking of Challenger, which is, I think, another crazy story. But I want to move on to. So Matt Gates says we've got alien breeding hybrid programs, and then this was from 5 months ago. From MSN, scientist claims to find alien DNA in humans. A scientist has bizarrely claimed to have found evidence of alien genetic manipulation in human DNA. Dr. Max Rempel, a molecular biologist with a PhD from the Institute of Gene Biology in Moscow, claims to have found strains of non-human DNA inside certain families. But what exactly does this mean? There's a picture of an alien, though, so it must be true. Dr. Rempel analyzed genetic data from 581 families that were in the public 1,000 Genomes Project. However, he says that in 11 of them, large chunks of DNA appeared that didn't match either parent. There were 348 variants in total that they couldn't be chalked up to modern gene editing like CRISPR. Another thing they want you to try to like really believe in and accept, which falls into the de-extinction program. That's a lot of what they're doing. Since the subjects were born decades before that technology existed. The results were published in Dr. Rempel's nonprofit DNA Resonance Research Foundation and yet to be peer-reviewed. But he told the Daily Mail that if the findings are confirmed, they could alter our understanding of human evolution and the future of the human race. That is literally what I'm trying to tell you about. Another example of what they're trying to do. Divorce you from the reality of God and get you to buy into their dystopia. In order for you to believe their crazy future of humanoids, pterodactyls, woolly mammoths, data centers, living inside a giant black cube, living forever, being immortal, plugging in your brain into a computer, they need you to be connected to a past that is almost as ridiculous. And our past is already ridiculous. Human history is insane. But they are trying to rewrite it in a more science-driven, science-based, false religion way. But he did also warn that the findings and preliminary and require more rigorous analysis. He said, no conclusive evidence yet because we need better data sets, which are available only on approval. That takes time and effort. However, Dr. Rempel went on to say that he believes the insertions might have come from an extraterrestrial intervention that could explain why some people possess enhanced traits such as telepathy or heightened perception. To look for more patterns, the researcher also examined 23andMe data and people who claim to have been abducted by aliens. The 23andMe thing, that's something we could get into. If China, I think China bought 23andMe. Whoever has 23andMe now, just convince Anonymous to hack into 23andMe and then give everyone DNA data to see what's up with human hybrids. Don't do that. That's a terrible idea. I don't want 23andMe to have it in the first place. No one should be doing that kind of stuff. I think they bought it to create personalized bioweapons. But this DNA thing is becoming pretty crazy as we are getting into a world where a former congressman is saying that he's been briefed about alien hybrid breeding programs. a little bit like what we were talking about yesterday with chimeras. I think that was yesterday. Trying to meld humans with animals. Some data showed traces of non-parental markers, which he says could mean the alien edits target specific bloodlines. He said humanity may be undergoing genetic transformation. If confirmed, it could be possible to detect which humans carry alien DNA, essentially identifying hybrids. People are going to start secretly stealing blood samples from politicians or anyone. Like how I really believe Bill Gates is sending mosquitoes after people to secretly take blood samples. I guarantee you that's happening right now. Guarantee you. But they're going to start doing it to politicians. You're not going to be safe. They're going to have to develop a whole new personalized Iron Dome to keep people safe as they walk through the world. Also, I think that they as in this government, probably finding ways to inject those self-assembling nanotechnology brain chips and getting them into you, like aerosolized, dropping them from the sky or something. So this could be their way of saying, it's not that. It's the cover story. We did not put any nanotechnology that would self-assemble inside your brain. We did not do that to you. It's aliens. You were abducted. Most of you were abducted, and they did this to you. So we don't like them. But we're going to sign a treaty with them, and they're going to be part of our government, and they will pay taxes. But he has also said that the current commercial genotyping services that rely on array-based data are not precise enough to confirm such radical claims. In its place, he wants next-generation sequencing, or whole genome sequencing, which can detect variants with much higher resolution. However, when people, or even people in the UFO community, are skeptical, Nigel Watson, author of Portraits of Alien Encounters Revisited, told the Daily Mail, alien abduction experiences can stem from a variety of terrestrial factors. We need to carefully verify these accounts before drawing conclusions from DNA. However, he added, if proven, this would be as world-shattering as recovering a flying saucer. Now, Dr. Rempel wants to collaborate with families willing to provide DNA samples and pay for sequencing. Don't do it, as this could show if extraterrestrial forces are influencing human genetics. This is how they're going to get the alien holocaust going. We just need everyone's DNA. They'll get IBM involved again. IBM's always around to help find out who's who. We had in New York during the vaccine passport days, which we did not participate in. IBM was the one designing the app. So they love that kind of stuff. He is also advocating for literacy in alien hybridization and DNA resonance. He said, we need to consider how much alien hybridization is healthy for the planet and which alien races we might give priority. Where is this guy? Where is this guy? Where is Dr. Rempel today? Where is Dr. Rempel on, the day after Matt Gaetz says there's alien hybrid programs? Probably fake. Probably fake. Let's see if there's any updates from him today. Doesn't look like it. Come on, dude. This is your thing. You should be out there with a statement after Matt Gaetz kind of confirmed some of your thoughts. But you're not. Don't you have a Twitter, huh? Dude, get with it. We're all waiting with bated breath. So anyway, you might be alien. I also saw this, The Curious Tales. Your genome contains 3.2 billion base pairs, and 847 of them were written by something that never evolved on Earth. The October 2025 study in Nature Genetics represents the largest genomic archaeology project ever attempted. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's team at MIT analyzed genetic data from 127,000 individuals across 74 countries using quantum computing algorithms that can process genetic sequences 10,000 times higher or faster than previous methods. The alien sequences occupy exactly 0.0087% of the human genome. That might sound insignificant until you realize the entire difference between humans and chimpanzees is only 1.2% of our DNA. This is from the Curious Tales, by the way, the Curious Tales on Twitter. These 847 sequences show up in 23% of the global population, but the distribution isn't random. They appear in 34% of individuals with IQs above 140 compared to only 11% in the general population. The correlation with cognitive ability has a statistical significance of p greater than or less than 0.0001, meaning that the probability this is coincidence is less than 1 in 10,000. Every sequence contains between 200 to 2,847 base pairs. For comparison, the average human gene contains 1,340 base pairs. These aren't genetic fragments or evolutionary accidents. Okay, I'm out when you come to evolution. They're complete functional genetic programs with start codons, regulatory regions, and termination sequences that follow no earthly biological template. The sequences encode 23 previously unknown proteins. When synthesized in laboratory conditions, these proteins demonstrate an enzymatic activity that operates 40 to 60% more efficiently than their closest human analogs. They appear designed for a more advanced biological system than the one we currently inhabit. So they're trying to say there's DNA here that was built for different landscape, different atmosphere, different time. Do you believe this? I don't believe in carbon dating being that accurate. But here we go. Carbon dating of ancient DNA samples reveals the insertion timing, 47,800 years ago, plus or minus 400 years. See, I don't even believe in these times. I think this is part of this narrative shift that they're trying to do. They're casting a spell on people. Another version of rewriting stuff, but I am fascinated by it. This coincides precisely with the archaeological record of the Upper Paleolithic Revolution, when human behavior suddenly became recognizably modern. Tool complexity increased by 300%. Artistic expression appeared simultaneously across continents with no contact between populations. Don't you think that right there, although I don't agree with this timeline, but that right there, to me, is just more proof of God and an intelligent design from the infinitely great God. Artistic expression appeared simultaneously across continents with no contact between populations. I think that's such a fascinating thing. The mathematical probability analysts breaks your brain. Analysis breaks your brain. These sequences would require 847 independent beneficial mutations, each with a probability of fixation in the human population of approximately 1 in 2.3 million, all occurring within a 400-year window. The combined probability they're saying is just astronomical here. For perspective, the number of elementary particles in the observable universe is estimated at 10 to 80. The encryption Rodriguez discovered follows principles that didn't exist in computer science until 2019. The sequences use quaternary base 4 coding nested inside the standard genetic code, creating information density 16 times higher than naturally occurring DNA. I think a lot of this stuff is they create tools for this science to help confirm their lies. It reminds me of COVID tests that just said, yep, you got COVID. It's not the flu. It's not anything else, but it's definitely COVID. It's definitely this new thing that was created in a lab that we can just give you these tests for. I don't know. I don't believe in the carbon dating, and I don't believe in years that go back that far. You might, and that's cool. We can have our disagreements over that. But there's something else I wanted to get to. Where are you? Since we're talking about rewriting history and reshaping the future. This is from yesterday. Exploring the Second Sphinx from the Daily Mail. So the other day you might have seen this trending. They say they found a new Sphinx buried underground. The possibility of a second Sphinx in Egypt has sparked renewed debate after new footage revealed dozens of deep shafts surrounding a mysterious mound at Giza. So pause there real quick. How fascinating. How fascinating is it that, we've been talking about the past 2 episodes, we talked about like Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, NASA, occult, Egyptian god worship, little g god worship. We talked about Apep, Apophis, the snake gods, Apep being the name of the Egyptian serpent that they said would try to devour the sun. It was always up against Ra, the sun god. Apophis being the same god, but the name for the for the Greeks. We talked about, how Apophis and Apep are the god of, they see it as the god of chaos and darkness. We talked about how NASA also named an asteroid Apophis. We talked about how NASA named their mission on April 8th, 2024, APEP, when they sent 3 rockets into space, into the total solar eclipse. Perturbations, APEP. The second P in APEP is perturbations. I just realized I might be able to say that word. Couldn't say it yesterday. Perturbations. I was saying I might do a whole episode where I just say perturbations for 2 hours. I wonder how many will tune in. If you want me to say perturbations for 2 hours, let me know, and it might happen. But all these things, right? Apophis, all these Egyptian gods, we knew that Crowley and Parsons prayed to these gods. It was a big part of their occult leanings. And Parsons, for those who missed yesterday, the day before, was the co-founder of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory that was absorbed by NASA. Parsons was a genius, but also into really evil stuff, was major inspired by Crowley, and also insane person who talked to demons on April 8th, right? Iwas, I think is how you call it, was this entity that spoke to Alistair on April 8th, 9th, and 10th, and helped him write what he called the Book of the Law, I think is the name of the book. And that conversation happened in Cairo. So it's a lot of Egyptian myth-making happening out of NASA. They're never really using like a lot of positive things to reference. God of chaos, God of the underworld, like Osiris is a thing that NASA is sending up to land, or I think not land on the Apophis asteroid, but maybe hover over it just slightly as it gets close to Earth. Osiris is the god of the underworld, god of other things. They always rebrand and have different things they do, but everyone mostly knows Osiris is the god of the underworld. So it's all this Egyptian stuff happening in what looks like the future. People see the final frontier. People are seeing space as the final frontier. It's always the future. Space is sci-fi is the future. And it's been riddled with Egyptian mythology. Now, like we started off the show saying, they're rewriting the human history to help reshape the future by redefining what it means to be human. Here we are with a pretty major find. I mean, whatever is going on, it's wild, but you can see, if this is happening, if it's all true, if they found something beneath, if they found a Sphinx below Giza, which is very possible because I believe in ancient civilizations that had lots of stuff we don't know about. But you can see how other people will latch onto this and can start doing that thing that we were just talking about of rewriting history and making it fit to and mold it into a narrative that will help people accept the future that the elite class wants to build. So there's a video now documented more than 100 shafts clustered around the site in the northwest corner of the plateau near the Western Cemetery of Giza, a region historically filled with burial shafts and ancient tomb complexes. The renewed interest follows claims by researcher Filippo Biondi last week that scans detected a large anomaly deep beneath the mound, which he believes may be a long-lost Sphinx. The footage, released by independent researcher Trevor Grassi of the Archaeological Rescue Foundation, captured dozens of square shafts carved into bedrock, many reportedly extending deep underground but filled primarily with sand. Imagine if we're about to find a breakaway civilization, or the place where a breakaway civilization went before they left and rejoined Earth. I think that stuff is so true. I think there are places in the world we can't find that people went to hide out and survive and have their ancient cities continue in their own version of a fallout shelter, doomsday bunker, right? Just like, around here in the Panhandle, there are so many mountains that have been carved out by the government so they can have continuity of government in their giant doomsday bunkers. Someone commented on my Instagram, speaking of high-level security places for emergencies. They were listening to the me talk about the Barksdale Air Force Base, the drone swarms. They knew someone who worked there. I didn't know that that's where they flew Bush after 9/11 happened, from Florida to Barksdale. But there's so many nukes there. It is. And this person was just reiterating, like, it is insane to them that anything was able to fly over it. If you believe nukes are real. But Grassi, who has spent nearly 2 decades researching Giza, said the video shows him physically walking along the perimeter of the mound, passing shaft after shaft cut directly into the limestone, some only about 3 feet across, while others measure roughly 8 feet wide. He said the unusually dense concentration of shafts surrounding the mound raises new questions about what may lie beneath the surface. The footage is among the first to document the full perimeter of the site, offering what supporters of a second Sphinx described as critical context for the ongoing debate. While no definitive proof of a second Sphinx has been discovered, researchers say the location warrants further investigation, given the number of openings and underground anomaly previously detected at the site. So, in the Daily Mail, they have a footage, like a satellite image of where they think this Sphinx could be, and they're pointing with red arrows on the image to like about 100 shafts that they believe are there, which could be concealing underground structures. In the video, the camera follows a walking path along the northern edge of the mound, revealing what Grassi described as endless shafts all over the place going straight down, all blocked with sand. He emphasized that many of the shafts seen in the footage, how many times do I have to say shaft? My goodness. In the footage appear to extend more than 100 feet underground. That is crazy. Noting that he had personally lowered equipment into several openings to measure their depth. Biondi took the world by storm last week during his appearance on the Matt Beal Limitless podcast. Shout out to Matt Beal's Limitless podcast, where he claimed to have scanned a mound of solidified sand on the surface, which he believes sits above the proposed second Sphinx. Using satellite radar technology capable of detecting subtle ground vibrations, Biondi said the data points to a massive structure concealed beneath a 180-foot-high mound of hardened sand, which he described as composed of solidified sand rather than natural bedrock. Preliminary scans show vertical shafts and passageways strikingly similar to those already found beneath the original Sphinx, with dense vertical lines believed to represent the solid walls of underground shafts rather than empty voids. We are very confident to announce this. We have a confidence of about 80%, said Biondi. However, there's always a however. Zahi Hawass, Egypt's former Minister of Antiquities, has dismissed similar claims in the past, saying the areas around the pyramids and the Sphinx have been extensively studied and excavated over decades without uncovering evidence of a second monument. Is that the guy who was on Rogan? Who had, I think maybe one of the worst interviews on Rogan? I could be wrong. I think it is. Yeah, I remember I didn't see the whole thing, so I really can't say it was the worst interview. But I remember seeing clips of being like, this guy is not, I don't know if anyone should be listening to this guy. But Grassi spent 12 years studying. Let me know if you listen to that one. Maybe I'm wrong. Grassi spent 12 years studying under independent researcher John Anthony West, who helped popularize the controversial theory that erosion patterns on the Great Sphinx were caused by ancient rainfall, suggesting the monument could be thousands of years older than traditionally believed. I think all these things could happen within the 6,000-year timeline that I believe we're in. He first traveled to Egypt in 2018, joining geologist Roger Scotch, we'll say, who worked alongside West on the erosion theory, and he is now investigating Biondi's claims. You've got 100 of them within 100 meters right there, Grassi said in the footage, arguing that such a concentration makes it unlikely they are isolated burial chambers. But they could be. They could be. Could be a lot. Have you seen cemeteries in the cities? The cemeteries in New York were just like the apartments in New York. A little bit of room, and you're shoulder to shoulder with your neighbor. Zahi Hawass, Egypt's former prime minister of antiquities, has dismissed similar claims, saying the areas on the pyramids and the Sphinx have been extensively studied for decades. You already wrote that paragraph. Did AI write this Daily Mail? That was a very similar paragraph to the one 3 paragraphs above, with just a few different words. The theory of a second Sphinx at Giza is not new, as Egyptologist Bassam el-Shama first proposed the idea in 2007 based on ancient pyramid texts, including the dream stele that Bondi also used to state his case. The dream stele positioned between the paws of the Great Sphinx appears to depict 2 Sphinx figures. If you look at all the temples, if you look at all the architecture and the way that everything in Egypt is set up, there are always 2 obelisks, said Grassi in a YouTube video. There are always 2 statues. There are always 2 sphinxes. There's always a perfect balance. It's, not a bad theory. There are always the 2 brain hemispheres, the 2 rising sun and setting sun. Everything is balanced in Egypt, and this is central as a tenet of the Egyptian religion. The mound itself is positioned along what researchers describe as a mirrored alignment across the plateau, extending from the known Sphinx through a central axis between the 2 largest pyramids. The footage focuses heavily on the large number of shafts surrounding the mound. Many of the openings appear only a few feet across, while others are significantly wider and cut deep into the limestone bedrock. According to Grassi, many of the shafts were currently filled with sand deposited during earlier excavations. He argued that the sheer number of shafts packed tightly together suggests that they may function as ventilation or access points for a larger underground network rather than isolated tombs. What do you guys think? I think it is more than possible that there are underground places that are in the world where people were hiding out. But it's also very possible this was just a large burial site. They never found mummies in pyramids, right? Have we talked about this? I always think that's funny. It's such good propaganda. I'm just fact checking myself to make sure I'm in the right timeline still. Were mummies found in pyramids? Were all Egyptian pharaohs buried in pyramids? In ancient Egypt, pyramids were the most characteristic tomb for kings of the Old Kingdom. The mummies of such pharaohs as, I'm not going to pronounce those names, were placed in a subterranean burial chamber beneath a pyramid. Khufu's mummy, however, was placed inside the Great Pyramid. So this is saying there is. I must be in a different timeline. I don't know what video I watched recently in another timeline that said there was no mummies found maybe in certain pyramids. That's what I could be getting wrong here. I want to pretend I'm still in the same timeline, but I could be wrong. You guys probably know better than me. Archival photographs from the 1900s appeared to show the area without the sand pile, indicating that it may have formed as a spoil heap, sand removed from nearby excavations and deposited in a central location. Grassi argued that this detail strengthens the possibility that buried features could exist beneath the mound, since spoil piles sometimes accumulate above previously excavated areas. Historical images referenced in the footage suggested the mound itself may not have existed before the early 20th century. Archival photographs from the 1900s appeared to show the area without the sand pile, indicating that it may have formed as a spoil heap, sand removed from nearby excavations and deposited in a central location. It's like along the sides of highways. You see they always have these mounds that you drive along. It's typically, at least in New York, by where I grew up, that was the old road that was buried beneath those, and they created these little mounds over it. Grassi argued that, or it was stuff they blew up to make the road, and they hid it beneath there instead of taking it out. Grassi argued that this detail strengthens the possibility that buried features could exist beneath the mound, since spoil piles sometimes accumulate above previously excavated areas. All we have to do is pull some sand out of there, and we'll know if they connect straight into this, he said, adding that clearing sand from existing shafts would be non-invasive and would not require drilling into the site. You know what we need to do now, right? We need to send Geraldo. Are you guys old enough to remember when Geraldo going to King Tut's tomb? Those are the good old days. Those were the good old days. Geraldo going to King Tut's tomb. I thought I could find footage of that, but guess I'm in the wrong timeline again. There's a debate online about mummies and pyramids. So just wanted to double checking some timeline stuff here in my brain. Some think of the pyramids as empty and enigmatic monuments, but they were built as tombs for the pharaohs. And this is according to Historical Eve. Among the many misconceptions about ancient Egypt, one widely held by the enigmatic community is that archaeologists have never found mummies in the pyramids, but instead human remains. It is true they are less numerous and poorly preserved mummies, which may have had less impact on historical disclosure. But we have located the mummies of at least one sovereign from each of the Egyptian dynasties that ordered the construction of the pyramids. From the 3rd to the 12th dynasty, the pharaohs and their relatives buried themselves in pyramids, and we have managed to find some of their remains. This is a debate that's ongoing. Like, there's a big mummy and pyramid debate. It's also going on r/archaeology. This person asks, I've read that no pharaohs have ever been found in pyramids, and when looking online, I can't seem to find evidence of them being found in pyramids. I have always been told that the pyramids are basically tombs for the pharaohs. What is the general consensus of this? Someone answered, the pyramids were all plundered in antiquity, and the bodies of the pharaohs who were buried there were most likely destroyed when the robbers looked for gold amulets in their wrappings. Allegedly, as they were being mummified, the person doing the embalming and the mummifying would put little like amulets on them for safe travels to the underworld. But grave robbing was such a problem that priests would eventually remove royal mummies from their original tombs and hide them in caches in order to protect them. Someone else said, I'll add that many of the old kingdom funerary monuments were in such bad shape by the new kingdom, when royal burials were mostly in the Valley of the Kings, that they were renovated and restored by a son of Ramses II, who left behind inscriptions. The tombs had undoubtedly been looted prior to that, so it is hardly surprising that nothing remains today, more than 3,000 years after the time that they were put in there. So it goes back and forth. I think a lot of grave robbing has taken place. A lot of grave robbing has taken place. I was talking the other day about, was it yesterday? My time as a grave digger. It was 2 years ago, not last year. I got the date wrong. But one of the stories that I was being told while digging graves was even as recent as 2 years ago, grave digging happens all the time. And he was telling me stories about some kind of crackheads breaking into mausoleums, crowbars, ripping open the door, ripping open the tomb, and just stealing any jewelry they could. And then the police were able to track it down because they left fingerprints everywhere and a soda bottle that they were drinking out of. But my grandfather was a hearse driver as well. Oddly enough, it is April 1st. It was on April 1st. It was on April Fool's Day that I found out he had fallen into a coma in 2015. And I drove right down to Florida to sit at his side where he passed away. And his funeral was on my 30th birthday. That was wild. But he had a lot of crazy stories about grave robbery, and it's prevalent. That's just another aspect of desperation that's been going on forever. But it's also invading people do it too, like Napoleon taking mummies. He's like, I'm taking this back with me. This looks cool. This is mine now. I'm bringing this back to France. I'm filling the Louvre. It's like Teddy going to Africa and killing all the animals and bringing them to the Museum of Natural History, which is an amazing museum. And there's a great statue of Teddy in the basement there. Although I think they removed the statue of Teddy out front, which is ridiculous. He's standing with Indians. He's making it look like he's better than them. Well, he was civilized. Sorry. He wasn't the best, but I like Teddy. He was a pretty interesting character. But I even saw a lot of grave robbery happen when I lived in Beacon, New York. If anyone out there knows about Beacon, New York, there was an old graveyard behind one of these churches on Route 9 that's now been like, the church might still be there, but the graveyard was built on top of by all these new homes because everyone left Brooklyn for Beacon after COVID happened. And now it's just been Brooklynified. And one day I'm walking around. It was a beautiful spring day, and it was spring night. And me and my friends were like, we saw something glowing in the woods. And I'm like, we should go look at that. At this point, we're probably like I was 21, probably 21. And at that point, Beacon was just a dead industrial river city. It was known for, like, I think rubber factories, and that all died down. And this is directly across from Newburgh, New York. And we had an apartment in Beacon, and it was dead. This is before it was like a fun place to live. There was really no one there. There was an amazing bagel place. There was an awesome Mexican restaurant that was basically in a house, and the guy who ran it would get mezcal from Mexico and had it in a Cantaro, and one shot of that. And I don't really drink anymore. I will every now and then. And I'll probably get Mexican food on my birthday. I love Greek and Mexican food are my favorites, and they're tied. I have to say that because I'm married to a Greek, and she might be listening if I don't say the right thing. She's going to throw like some Greek food at me. I can't even think. I don't even want to pronounce it. Spanakopita. There, I did it. She says it way better than me. But the Cantaro of mezcal was heavy. You'd walk out of there just like hallucinating. It was such a strong drink. But anyway, one night we're walking around Beacon. It's this like kind of dilapidated town, but beautiful, old architecture. Really, I love that town. And the glowing thing in the woods. And we walk towards it, and we find this old graveyard. It's kind of like above the train station, kind of near what is called the Dia Art Center, which is kind of cool, but also kind of a little too hoity-toity, but it's cool. It helped revitalize that area by bringing in people to go to Dia, and then Beacon kind of had a renaissance. But there was the glowing thing in the woods was a candle, a memorial candle that someone had been lighting for someone that died in like the early 1800s. And we were like, who is lighting this candle? What crackhead is doing this? And then like we start to just like roam around because I'm curious now. And I'm like, oh, that mausoleum and that mausoleum, they've all been opened. And you just peek your head in and everything's open. There's no casket. There was a thing that held a casket. Everything's gone. But it didn't look like it was done in a polite manner. Like, is anyone watching this cemetery? What's going on there? It was below the church I was referencing. So I'm looking at the back of the church. It's kind of like a cliff that comes down, and this dark space in the woods. It's a graveyard that I'm pretty sure people live on top of now. But then the more I look around, it was pretty gnarly. Holes into the dirt, like looked like shovel holes. It wasn't animal holes. Looked like holes were dug to get stuff out. And at that time, Beacon had a pretty gnarly population of drug addicts. It was crazy times. They also had a whole population of people who were schizophrenic, and they lived at a place called Edgewood. And Edgewood's slogan was a place to get away from it all. So people would be sent there. Not everyone had schizophrenia, but a lot of people did, or whatever. They had something like it. And but they were allowed, if they took their medicine, to walk around Beacon all the time during the day. They had a curfew. And those were our friends. My roommates, and then the schizophrenics. There was Karate Joe. There was Howard. There were a lot of good people. There was an old black man named Mr. Johnson who told me about the time someone got fresh with him. And this man was great. He had a cane, slacks, always dressed really nice, button-down shirt tucked in, braided brown leather belt, nice like straw hat, but flat, on the top. And we would just talk all the time on Main Street. And he would tell me the same story almost every day. But one time, someone was getting real fresh with him when he was younger, when he was quicker. And Mr. Johnson said he took out his knife and he went like this. And And the guy who was getting fresh with him looked at him like, yeah, what are you going to do? What'd you do? You didn't do anything. And Mr. Johnson, who would tell the story, he'd be like, shake your face. And the guy would shake his face. And then Mr. Johnson, his whole face fell apart. So with his knife, he did it so fast. It was like a samurai. But yeah, those were crazy times. But that graveyard was looted. So if that little graveyard can be looted over just that, like since the 1800s, although I imagine most of it happened in the past, few decades. Think about the pyramids. Think about everywhere around the world. In New York, still a lot of forest, thankfully. You're always coming across old graves that people forgot about. A lot of skeletons for sale. I knew a person who sold skulls, and when things were really tough for me financially, a really long time ago, back when I was a furniture mover, I was like, look, if it gets bad enough, how much can you sell my skull for in my brain? If you could put my brain in like a wet specimen jar, like he's like, maybe $900. I'm like, $900? At the time that sounded like a lot though. So I'm like, all right, if anything happens, I wasn't going to do anything to myself. That's not what I'm saying. But I was like, if anything happens, that $900, you can give it to my family. Don't split it, actually. Give it to my family. But he had a whole store filled with wet specimens. I don't know how he got them. Maybe they were Uyghur Muslims. Maybe he had a connection to China. No, he actually would procure them himself. And they weren't human. He would go out into the woods. He would hunt. Sometimes he'd take roadkill. That's how he learned to taxidermy. I saw it myself. It was not fun living in that apartment, watching someone learn how to taxidermy in Beacon, New York, as the streets are filled with schizophrenics and the graveyards are being looted. But that's my past. How about you? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Always a pleasure. I do post a link to call in. No one today. Zoom was working. Very grateful for the people who called in yesterday. You guys are awesome. But if anyone wants to call in, tell me a story, talk about something that's in the news, Sphinxes, lab-grown rat brains. We've got headless human bodies, cloning, UFOs, orbs, meteors, you name it, pterodactyls, woolly mammoths, cats and dogs, all that good stuff. Hit me up. Let me know what you think. And as always, thank you so much for leaving the comments, for liking, subscribing. It does help the show quite a bit. You guys and your support means a lot. Shout out to all of you on Rumble. Shout out to all of you on YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for the support. Have a great night. See you all tomorrow.